Welcome to the latest episode of the Teaming Up podcast. In this episode, Alejandro Leon is joined by Adriana Velasquez, one of our agency's cultural consultants and CEO of Growth. To celebrate Hispanic Heritage Month, the pair discusses their experiences with Spanglish and bilingualism, marketing to the Hispanic community through thorough research, and an understanding of cultures, language, and media preferences. If you haven't yet, make sure you're subscribed to Teaming Up and leave us a review if you like what you're hearing. Now, Alejandro, take it away.
Welcome back for another Teaming Up. I'm Alejandro Leon. I'm here with Adriana Velasquez. We're going to talk about Hispanic communications in honor of Hispanic Heritage Month. Adriana, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm really excited.
Yeah, I'm so excited to have this conversation. I feel like a lot of my education, a lot of the work I do is so obviously in the world of English, but I've been touching more and more Hispanic communications and just seeing the differences, the things you need to focus on. It's been really interesting kind of diving in and reconnecting with my culture. So
absolutely. I feel the same way.
Yeah. And for Hispanic Heritage Month, I couldn't think of a more appropriate conversation. I feel like this is the month where everyone's kind of thinking in the space. It gives us an opportunity to really highlight our cultures. Adriana, as just a first question, I'd love to know your background, your family, and you yourself growing up.
Yeah, I was born in Lima, Peru. I came when I was 9, so had to quickly learn English. But you know, you're bound to learn it really quickly. Right. You're exposed to high school and the different...
Did you take classes?
I did. Well, I enrolled into, was it elementary school elementary school, and took ESL there.
Right.
But yeah, and my family also is here in Virginia.
Okay.
And
how long have they lived here?
We have been here for over 20 years now.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, we're all bilingual. We very much speak like Spanglish in our household. But yeah.
You know, recently I get a lot of TikToks, and I had been getting more TikToks on Spanglish words that I didn't know were Spanglish. I didn't know parqueadero, which is a parking lot, was Spanglish. That's not the actual word. I don't even know the actual word. I only know the Spanglish version. So just seeing that stuff, I was like, wow, I don't even know my own language. What's going on here? It's interesting when you're bilingual, when you have both sides of it, and you've been growing up with both sides of it.
Exactly, yes. I've been traveling back to Peru almost once a year. So, you know, going back, it's like learning a new slang, and it's just every time I go, I'm learning something new.
Right.
Where are you from? Where's your family from?
So on the other end of that, I was born in Florida. I'm from Fort Lauderdale, Florida. My family, everyone's Colombian. My mom grew up in Bogota, the capital, and then my grandmother, she is from a little village called Santander. They moved here right before I was born, maybe 2 years earlier, and then I was born. We've been here since 1997, so also over 25 years in the country. I need to make a trip back. I haven't visited in a really long time. I'm actually planning to go at the end of the year.
Nice. Good.
But yeah, growing up, I also was just very exposed to like both English and Spanish, and just seeing both sides. I think it's actually helped me be a better communicator, which is really, really interesting, because you'd think it would maybe like mix things up, but I feel like I express myself even better than most people, just knowing both sides.
Yeah.
And I grew up, I learned English from a set of Scooby-Doo tapes. There was just this, back when VCR, I think, was still popular. There was a set of 12 tapes, and my parents would just throw that on for me because they didn't know any English. So just watching that as a little kid, that's kind of how I picked everything up. And then from there, just the exposure from school and things like that is what reinforced my English. But very much both sides. Yeah.
Yeah. I would say school too. Because you don't have, you have to speak English, and you're constantly speaking it. So well, that's the best way to learn. You're just kind of thrown in that environment.
I had lived, I believe, 2 or 3 years in Colombia after living here for also 2 or 3 years, and I came back when I was 6 years old. and we had to take some ESL classes to see if we'd have to place in the ESL. I tested out through those screw-do tapes, and my cousin, who lived here his entire life, had to go into ESL. So it's just interesting how this kind of things work.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear more about your professional background, the services you offer, and some of your work.
Yeah, of course. I've spent the past 8 years working in the marketing field, and within those years, I have helped market and target the Hispanic community, the Hispanic population, as well as providing Spanish translating services. So yeah, and I actually started growth during COVID.
Wow.
So when COVID hit, I was like, okay, let me start my LLC, because I really wanted to help Hispanics with their companies. I found that a lot of Hispanics have companies, whether it's landscaping or a painting business, but they are not online. So you cannot find them,
right.
But they do very good work. So I spent that time really helping them get online, have an online presence. So, would have my meetings with them in Spanish, but then would kind of just create this whole brand, anything from their logo to their website or their Google My Business. So just helping them get online, maybe having some social media channels and all of that. So, yeah.
Right. That's awesome. That is such important work. But yeah, Adriana, I'd love to just have a quick chat about Hispanic Heritage Month and kind of the opportunity for marketers in this space and in this month to really highlight their Hispanic communications. What do you think are the most important things to keep in mind when doing market research for these?
Yeah, I would say, the Hispanic population is very diverse. There are 21 countries that speak Spanish in the world, and each country has their own culture, their own slang. Just everything is very different, even though there is a universal Spanish. So keeping that in mind, depending on who you're targeting. Also, age, gender, depending on that demographic as well, because you are going to target someone that's in the younger generation in a different media channel than, an older population within Hispanics.
Right.
So...
yeah. I'd love to know kind of like what are some of the cultural differences? Like what are the most common ones that you've seen that like when you're reaching out or when you're doing this research that you find?
I would say language. So for Peruvians, I feel like it's a little bit of more formal, but if I were targeting a Caribbean country, so like the Republic, I want to say it in Spanish, but Dominican Republic, their English is so much faster and they use a lot of slang. And so if you are, selling a product or have a service that's going to be in that country, I would suggest getting someone that has that accent and can speak really fast, just to target that audience better. Yeah. So definitely, language.
Right. Well, how does your country say straw? How do you all say straw?
Straw? Oh my gosh.
I've heard so many different variations, and I'm just like, it always confuses me. And in a restaurant, I get embarrassed because we say pitillo. And for some people, they're like, what are you talking about? I've heard popote. I've heard...
we definitely don't use pitillo. How do we say straw? Oh my gosh. It's not pitillo, though.
You'll have to get back to me because I'm actually curious. I've been collecting like how some of these countries have been saying it because I want to go to a restaurant and always get it right.
Yeah, no, I'll have to go back and this is the thing, I'll forget things in Spanish, but then I'll also forget things in English.
Right.
So it's like, oh my gosh, like it's frustrating sometimes. And that's where the Spanglish comes in.
Yeah.
Because it's like, I'm going to say the full sentence.
I mean, I
in
feel
English and in Spanish using both.
Right. like kind of rely on context clues. That's what I do. Like if I would say every word in Spanish and then that one I don't know is said in English and you better figure it out.
Yes.
Because that's the best I got. But yeah, on that topic, what are some of the most common mistakes to avoid when kind of conducting market research on these audiences?
To avoid assuming that every, Hispanic is the same, that everyone has the same culture, the same views, or even education, just not assuming and really doing your research on who you are trying to target. And then also maybe input, so when you do have a project or trying to target the Hispanics, getting their input, getting someone from that target community, right. And going over that project and being like, oh, yes, this is on track, or no, not at all. This is not going to be relevant to us. Getting feedback.
Right. Here in Richmond, do you know some of the larger populations of Latinos?
Yes, I would say there aren't many Peruvians here in Richmond. Mm-hmm. I originally moved from Northern Virginia, right. So from the Ashburn area, and there are so many Peruvians. So coming here, I was kind of shocked. There's no Peruvian cuisine or Peruvian restaurants. But
I'm still trying to find that chicken place.
Yeah,
I haven't found one.
I really miss ceviche. I can't find a good ceviche place here. But I would say definitely Dominicans, Guatemalans. A lot of people from Guatemala here. Right. Yeah. So
I haven't found too many Colombians here either. I'm also from Northern Virginia. There were a lot up there as well.
Yes.
That's interesting. Kind of in that same vein of market research, I'd love to talk about just cultural sensitivity and the approach on kind of finally going out there and targeting and doing some of this marketing. How can marketers avoid making the assumptions about Hispanic populations? Would you say it really takes that extra step of speaking with people from each of these locations, from each of these regions?
I would say research and just really understanding your market and who you're targeting to not make those mistakes. And then also finding out what media channels they live in. Right. So, I know that Hispanics, and not only Hispanics, I've noticed this when I traveled, but a lot of people from Europe, they use WhatsApp.
Oh, yeah.
For everything. That's how everyone communicates. So, if I want to speak to a cousin in Peru or tias, mm-hmm. They're all in WhatsApp.
I don't know when that happened, but one day I woke up and everyone was on WhatsApp.
Everyone. And you can even promote your business through there, promote your services. So really knowing what media channels to use.
Right.
Also, I would say TikTok for the younger generation of Hispanics, they're all over it.
Are you on a No Sabo TikTok?
I am. I have seen it. It's really funny.
Yeah, I saw there's card games out for it now where you have to guess what the word is in Spanish, and if you don't, you're a No Sabo. So that was really, really fun to see. Yeah, that's interesting. We recently did some campaigning in the Spanish community, and one of the big ones actually we found out was, and I knew this on my own personal level, but I didn't think about it in the broader scope, is the low levels of literacy for a lot of the Hispanic population. Mm-hmm. You don't really realize how much of a barrier that can be until you're trying to reach them, and you're using all this formal language, you're using these big words in Spanish that for them that means nothing. We were targeting some climate. We wanted more feedback on climate resilience, and we were using just high levels of language that did not resonate with these people. We didn't get a lot of feedback.
Exactly.
That we were looking for. It took a lot of retooling to finally get some results, but it was really difficult. And just keeping that in mind, that's where I was like, I should have tapped in more into my understanding of my population.
Exactly, and that's where I think it's critical to get input from, an individual that is in that target community to get feedback, because you're going to be throwing away a lot of money or budget if there's no return. Like if the ad or the project isn't responsive. So yeah, absolutely. Oh, and straw just came to mind. It's caña. So we say cañita.
Cañita. Okay.
Yeah. So me pasas la cañita. We don't use pitillo.
I've heard a lot of P's. So I stick in the P area. Like I said, popote, pitillo. But that's interesting. Yeah. Again, like I'm gonna get them all down.
Yeah, I know. It's tough.
There's a lot of difference in the language, and it's really interesting when I sit down and I do my Hispanic communications, like translation.
Yes,
I always look at it through a Colombian lens, because that's just how I grew up. That's my default. But it really does take an extra step. Like, okay, wait, what is the audience? Because some of these words they might even be offensive in another language, and that's not something you consider in the moment.
Absolutely. One of my neighbors is from Puerto Rico, and she says this word to me all the time, but it's actually like a bad word and very offensive, like if you used it in Peru.
Tell me
and
off
I'm
camera.
always like, I'm always like, and she's like, oh, that's something that we just say. It's not. I'm like, oh my gosh, don't say that like in Peru, right? Because it's,
Yeah, no, I've definitely, growing up, I used to get corrected by my mom, because she's like, I've gotten in trouble for these words, so don't say them. I was like, oh, that's so weird how that works. Even recently, there was a translation request that came in where, it's funny, even just the English to Spanish, it was like, shoot your shot. But in Spanish, that would literally translate to like shooting a shot, like a bullet shot, and obviously inappropriate, not what we're trying to communicate. And you're just sitting there, you're like, wow, even just the English to Spanish, the Google Translate really doesn't do it. It doesn't do it justice. It doesn't convey the message that you're looking for.
Absolutely.
It's a good, quick resource, but I always tell people, I'm like, double check with someone who actually is like part of that culture, who speaks Spanish, who reads, writes, everything, the whole 9 yards,
Yes, and actually providing accurate translation is crucial, just because, it's credibility to your brand. And then the Hispanic client as well, feels valued, feels seen when it's properly translated. I've gone to places where, I'll be like at a firm and I use their restroom and they have a sign with content in Spanish and it doesn't make sense.
Right.
And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is like a high-end firm and the Spanish is just off. And for me, I'm just like, I immediately lose like credibility. I'm like, they could have just, hired someone to translate all these things. But yeah, I think it's very important to translate I think accurately.
It kind of builds trust in our community.
Yes.
We love to talk.
Yeah.
We love to communicate. And I just feel like when I see something that's like just in translated incorrectly or using wrong conjugation, things like that, I look at that and I'm like, you're not actually trying to reach me. You're just trying to put a placeholder. It's just too performative. It doesn't really reach me. Fortunately, I speak English, so I can, push past that. But I think about, my relatives who don't speak. I'm like, that feeling's probably times 10.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, yeah.
But so I'd love to know, what do you think? What are some of the best ways to reach the Latino population? I know you mentioned WhatsApp, and I didn't even know you could do all that on WhatsApp. But like strategies, what do you think resonates most with our population as far as content and things like that?
For content, I would look at where they're living online, but also I would say outside of just content, doing events, so in-person events, so anything from cultural festivals or community events, maybe partnering with local Hispanic nonprofits. is going to be very beneficial, and you're really going to be able to speak to them, present to them that product, that service. Maybe you're sponsoring and have a tent and can actually talk to them. I think that's the best way to really connect with them. And then, online as well. Like I mentioned, WhatsApp, TikTok, or even like YouTube ads. I've found that like I'll play salsa mixes on YouTube, and I've recently been getting a lot of Spanish ads. And so just because
somebody's
I'm playing,
doing something right.
So I think that's another good way to target. So just knowing the channels where they're living, where they're at.
I feel like at least like I think to my grandma, and I feel like she loves videos a lot.
Yes.
She just loves video content. Like she doesn't want to read stuff. She's old, she's tired. So just give her a nice video, package it up, give her some Spanish music, and I feel like it always sticks with her. She'll always mention something about a video she just watched more than anything else.
So, my mom's really into memes too, or like reels and things like that. She'll send me so many on Facebook.
Facebook is exactly
I'm not
what
even on Facebook like that, but I'll go because I know she's sending me so many videos.
I have 5 unopened ones from my mom right at this moment that I need to get to after after this. My mom is also. It's so funny how that's reached our population because I didn't think. I always, when growing up, I saw memes in the English side, and that's how it started. But seeing that the Spanish population has grabbed a hold of that, I was like, wow, that's awesome. But 2, it's like that's actually is another form of communication. That is another form of reaching people that people also don't consider either. But yeah, I'd love to talk. You kind of started coming into the space of events and things like that. I'd love to talk community engagement and partnerships with you. What do you think are some effective ways to collaborate with culture experts and organizations?
Some effective ways?
I know we talked about the events, and I do think the in-person stuff really does resonate with our population. I think, like I said, we love to talk, we love to meet, we love to break bread. Yes. So I think that's really useful. But if you have any other ways that collaboration can happen between these experts, like yourself.
Yeah. I would say like the Que Pasa Festival.
Right.
I think a lot of Hispanics go to that. So even if, if you're a restaurant or you're a new bar and you're trying to target Hispanics or maybe a law firm, immigration law firm, I don't know, anything.
Right.
Just really being involved in that, in that community.
I remember when I went to Que Pasa, I think like 2 years ago, and it was really, or it may have been 3 years ago. There were a few organizations, and this kind of goes back to the communications, where they were there, but they didn't even have a representative that spoke Spanish, but they were still there, which was cool. I thought it was a nice attempt. Obviously, like you would want to have a Latino person there.
Yes.
You want someone who can actually engage with the person. But even I feel like even showing up, just getting the brand does something. I don't know. Yeah. I resonated with me. I at this point, I don't remember all the organizations that were there, but just seeing them there, I'm like, oh, well, it's interesting that you take an interest that you would set up, that you would be here, that you'd want to reach our population. And I'm assuming once the services are offered, there's somebody who can speak to these people.
Yes. That's actually a good point, because I've seen companies, I've seen brands where, they spend the money to translate all this content and to target Hispanics. But then when they are targeting them and the Hispanics reach back out or they're trying to apply or contact that office, there's no one that they can really speak to in Spanish. So they're promoting content in Spanish, but then when they reach out, they should have someone designated that, can make that appointment for them, kind of just discuss the different options, so having someone designated that speaks Spanish, even if, for example, the class or the course, the product service is in English, I think it would be beneficial to have someone designated that speaks Spanish.
Yeah, I found that, and I understand why a lot of people don't really think those steps through. They don't think of what it really means to engage with our population. It's a top to bottom, like, piece of work. Like, you really have to engage authentically. You have to bring your whole self into it. You have to hire the right people, and you have to consider it at every step. A lot of marketers, like you said, they want to do it, and they'll even maybe pay for the translation services. They'll do all their homework in that end. But when it's time to either offer the service or offer a product, that's when they're like, wait,
yeah,
how are we supposed to do this? We finally got them through the door? We don't know what to do now. It's interesting. Just like the nuances that kind of come with reaching our populations.
Exactly.
I'd love to know what are some of the common pitfalls to avoid when partnering with Hispanic organizations?
Pitfalls.
What are some of the things that you feel like we just talked about? I think we started on the biggest one, which is not having a thorough Hispanic department that can actually offer these services even after marketing. But what would you say some of the other common pitfalls are for avoiding partnering? To avoid.
Yeah. Using outdated or irrelevant media channels for outreach.
Okay.
Conducting research without input from individuals who are part of that target community. Mm-hmm. And just overlooking their cultural practices, values, and traditions. I would say.
I think I told this story last year when we had met up. We had talked to a community health worker sometime last year, and they were kind of telling us what they do to engage with the Hispanic population, and they offer like dieting help for like the more poor communities. And they're like, I wouldn't go in there and offer spinach as an iron supplement. I would tell them to go get nopales, which for those of you who don't understand what I'm saying, that's cactus, which I found so fascinating. I was like, of course, that, for them, nopales is a no-brainer, but they probably don't even have spinach in their region or something like that. Mm-hmm. So those are kind of like the cultural nuances that we were talking about. Like, you need to understand these things, and you need to have that research, or you really need to know somebody who can do these things for you.
Yes. And I've actually had nopales pretty recently, and I've never really had them in Peru, but here they have them with their carne asada, so you throw them on the grill, right. And I'm like, I'm eating cactus, but if you season it very well, it's really good.
Right. I think I've had it on tacos, right? Is that it normally goes on tacos?
Yes, tacos.
Okay, then I've definitely had it.
Yeah.
And sometimes it doesn't taste any different than anything else.
Yeah.
There's no prickly stuff on there. You're fine.
Yeah, exactly. It's really good.
Yeah, no, it is really, really good. But yeah, that's honestly all I had for that. I love this chat. I love authentically engaging and being able to kind of understand and break down those things. Did you have any final thoughts or anything else on how to engage with Hispanic communications?
No. I would just say, do your research, know who you're targeting in the Hispanic community, and then also having someone that can talk to them, like be ready for them if they reach out or they do want to buy your product, use your service. So be ready for all the questions, because they always have a lot of questions. Right. We always have a lot of questions.
That we do. Well, we're wishing everyone a happy Hispanic Heritage Month. We're encouraging you to get out there, go engage with our community. We're happy to share. We love food. We love music. We love connecting with people. So this is your opportunity to get out there and do so.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening to the Teaming Up podcast. Teaming Up is brought to you by the Hodges Partnership, a strategic communications agency that specializes in storytelling through public relations, media relations, content marketing, and social media. The Teaming Up podcast is a Happy Committee production. Episodes are released monthly. Subscribe on your favorite podcast service so you never miss an episode.